welcome to our April webinar. Today, we're going to discuss a very important topic and something that we all experience, continue to experience maybe throughout our lives, but we don't talk enough. And I think it becomes much more um, challenging for uh, people of color, people coming from marginalized backgrounds. So it's a very important topic, and I hope that we will go back with some very powerful insights. And to discuss that, we have invited someone, a very special guest, and I'll shortly introduce her. But the topic is imposter syndrome, uh, enablers and implications across Francophone West African women leaders. Now we're going to look at it in light of that that demographic, but it is, I strongly believe, a global issue. Everyone experiences it in every industry. So I think, everyone will benefit from the discussion we will have. And to do that, we have invited Fatoumata Adelle. Welcome, Fatoumata. We're really privileged to have you here today.
Thank
And
you for having me.
before I, let you speak, I'll just say a few words about you. I always encourage everyone joining and everyone watching our video at a later point to have a look at the profile of the speaker, learn more about her, so that everyone understands the kind of achievements, the kind of journeys our speakers have been through, which is, always very inspiring. So, Fatoumata is an award-winning writer, a physician, and a public health expert with work experience both with communities, international organizations for development, as well as for research institutions in Africa and the USA. She's currently a health specialist with projects in Chad, Cameroon, and Central African Republic at the World Bank Group. Before that, she was a health specialist as a young professional at the Pandemic Fund Secretariat World Bank, managing the Mpox response portfolio of $129 million for 5 projects across 10 countries in East Africa. So as you can see, it's a massive achievement to be doing all this. And obviously our speaker comes with a lot of experience um, from the health sector as well as several countries in Africa. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So welcome again, Fatoumata. We're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Very, very happy to be here and to have this extremely important conversation for us women wherever we are.
Thank you. And so without further delay, I'll just get right back into the questions. And I always, maybe I'll do a little bit of intro about myself. I'm Lamona Chanda. I'm one of the co-founders of the Global Activist Network. And, I co-founded this initiative along with my other co-founder who's with us here, Gertrude, because we wanted to give a voice to change makers working at the grassroots. And we found that a lot of the times those voices are missing in massive global platforms. Some of the platforms where you belong, where you have worked, and I'm sure that you know what we're talking about. And I'm sure that most of us suffer from imposter syndrome. So why don't we start? Please tell us a little about your life, your journey, and sort of what inspired you to explore this area of work.
Thank you so much. Very, very happy, as I said, to be here. Thank you for the invitation and the honor to have this discussion. And I'm really happy also when you explain, what made you create this network and how you really want to showcase different voices, because the different voices, it matters. Every new additional voice we hear about and we learn something. Sometimes we relate, sometimes we don't relate, but that's how the beautiful of making impact in the world works. So I just want to start and acknowledge this talk and this discussion is my they are my personal views are not tied to my organization, and it's a work that I've done a couple of years ago that I'm really happy now to showcase. How do I get to this work or interest about imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon or the way you want to call it? The first point is really my journey into leadership. I was pulled into leadership. It was not something that I was looking for. It was not something that I thought I could do. I went into leadership from service. You mentioned a little bit of my bio earlier. Um, I was coming from communities, the one which goes into the community and serving the community, wanted to fix a problem, stepping in so we can fix this. If I can, I will pull my friends, pull my colleagues, or a shared passion. I started in communities fixing issues. And it started growing, and without knowing, here we are with an association,
Mm.
co-founding an NGO here for youth and women's empowerment. Oh, we have an issue in this neighborhood, let's go fix it. This is how it really I went into leadership this way, even for my own passion of books and writing, going from pulling 10 people and say, hey, this is a lovely book I've read, can you guys please read it? And then we go from 10 to 270, and then it becomes an NGO, etc. This is how I was pulled into leadership. And having this kind of network and recognition and impact in the community led me to some international platforms. And that's the second point where I was introduced to this phenomenal movement of women leaders in global health. And I was both fascinated by, you know, um, the saying women and this organization and the movement challenging power and privilege. I say that's fantastic. And then on the other hand, you're hit by the numbers, by the data, by the woman leading the workforce at the front line, not being in the decision rooms, not being invited, and the environment is not set for them to be able to go into the leadership positions.
Yes.
So these two things led me to the third thing to say, look, I would like to understand the different barriers which prevents a woman into going into leadership position. They are competent, they are a lot in this, field of health, but they're not in the leadership positions. But I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet, on top of being whatever I am, I want to understand it at a conversational point of view.
Yes.
So, and then I went into a leadership program with phenomenal young women in West Africa, Francophone. That's why it's Francophone West Africa. It was nothing to do with the language, but it was the first network I had. So I wanted to sit and have conversation with many different women, a group of 40 established leaders in health and then 40 just starting, so I can understand their point of view. Do they have imposter syndrome? Or maybe they don't have it. Or what are they thinking about it at a very conversational point of view? So that's what led me to this work. And of course, you always discover, some feelings, interesting perspective when you talk to many different people.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. And there are a lot of nuggets of gold here, and I can recognize, because when we take a journey, we pick up these things. We have a lot of young change makers, and you said that you're a storyteller. I call myself a storyteller as well, and I know we both know why storytelling is so important. And there's so many things that you mentioned in your response that I connected with. One other thing is your journey from picking those 10 people to 200, and then to your leadership journey, which is also, I think, is a great lesson for many of us who start small, and then we get frustrated feeling, oh, I see some others ending up in massive platforms, but I'm not getting that chance. But it gradually grows. So we'll learn all of that from you, from sort of messages, conversations I've had with you previous to our webinar today. You mentioned that you have looked into a study. So incorporating all that, I'll ask you my second question, which is, How does imposter syndrome manifest among healthcare professionals that you have seen, and what factors, in your view, contribute to its prevalence?
Yes, thank you. So from my conversation, it's really interesting. What I saw is a little bit of, okay, how does it, so if I ask the question, do you even doubt yourself? Does it happen that you feel you're not inadequate, translating this whole jargon on how they feel? But then I dig and find out what is behind. Okay, then what action do you do when you have this inner critics, when you have the self-doubt? What action do you do, or what action you're not doing? So the first part which came out is for the women who are really new into the leadership positions,
Mm.
they tend to kind of shrink. And how does it come? It's first, it's a discomfort with the leadership title. You know, they will
Yes.
tell me, I feel it difficult to just accept that title. So it's like I'm a little bit shrinking when I'm called, the chief or the head or something. And it is a way to avoid, seeming overconfident. And why? Because they were told not to appear confident. And the second thing is, feeling this uncomfortable when somebody is acknowledging their work. And feeling that discomfort will lead them literally not to act in a certain way when it's needed. So it's this inner voice saying she's not truly worth the title and it holds her back. Second thing is a tendency to downplay the role just to avoid appearing, that boss. It's
Mm.
really interesting because when I say, so when you feel that inner voice, what do you do? You're like, okay, so, even if when I have to speak and give something interesting, I kind of start with a sentence which kind of put me in a position like they're not judging me right away and taking me thinking that, oh, I'm a confident, which is very interesting. So third thing is the self-elimination from the advancement, literally. They're new into leadership, so they will turn down promotions. They will don't want to take more new responsibilities because, oh, if I take this new responsibility, then I will be so much visible. Then I have to compete. Then I have to go through all the whole stress. I don't want to do that. So I want to stay in that middle. And I remember having a discussion with one of them and say, okay, and did you stay there? You didn't do nothing after like a year or two? And she was explaining to me that it was somebody who had to sit and her and draw with a pen to tell her, look, all the competencies you have in percentages and listing activities, you got the skills, you'll be able to do so. The second part for the more established people that I talk to, they don't downplay their role. They still have that little discomfort, but they delay some of the actions and the decisions. So it's a relationship with time. First is they kind of over prepare to compensate the feeling of inadequacy because, oh, if I want to go to the next leadership, role, I need to be able to show that I am very capable. And being very capable for a woman leader in the context that I grew up, it's like I have to do 10 times to prove I'm capable of doing. And on top of doing all the real work, at work in the professional, we all know that women also vary the care which is not paid for. The home care for the communities, the family care, which is not even paid for. So that's one, the over preparation to compensate. The second thing is the perfectionism driven delay to make the decision. I will not make this decision until I'm 100% sure, it's perfect. This reform, this new idea to change here, this, new project, I think it's excellent. I love it. I think it's going to have impact. But then until I'm certainly sure I'll be able to deliver, I have the excellent team. I have everything ready. The decision to start, it's a little bit delayed. So these are the two things that I've seen. And in this dynamic, I mean, the strong ideas, strong reforms, they get postponed. Why? Because it's coming out of fear of failure, of exposure sometimes, or even acting too soon because of internalized everything that women went through and continue to go through. Um, and then last thing is, among the women I talked to, there were women who told me, look, I don't have it. I don't feel like I have an imposter, or I really have it very, very little. So I was interested also to ask, then what happened? So first, three or four of them told me, I am not an imposter. Men are imposter. They are taking a space which is mine. So why am I expected to have imposter? So my understanding of from the discussions is that sometime or maybe many a time people expect us women to have imposter. So if you don't have it, then they start projecting it to you. So they told me, no, we don't have imposter. People expect us to have imposter, so we don't have it. So that's another perspective. And what I realized from these women who don't have it or have it very less, it's really women who went into leadership coming from a service perspective, you know, an activist coming from a movement-based pathways. These things help them get the recognition, the confidence, and the impact, and surrounded by people who cheer for what they do before they get into that position. So it's a sort of a leadership which is built through service, collective action, confidence. It precedes the position, so it reduced the condition and how, imposter could manifest itself because all these things are built, are validated, experienced before a position even comes. So it's belonging and some legitimacy before, power is granted or taken.
That's so powerful, Fatoumata, because I think I'm at a stage in my life right now where I'm experiencing all these things, and I hope that a lot of children in high school watch this discussion because I think it will really help them. Now, I think my second question sort of ties in with some of the factors that you mentioned, but I will add in another element that I'm very curious about. Um, I will ask what structural or cultural factors enable or reinforce imposter syndrome among leaders. But I would also like to know, as women, do you feel, coming from a health background, that we're conditioned to think this way, or is it the societal arrangement that contributes to this sort of mindset?
Yes, I think it's a different layers. Definitely, the enabling factors. We've seen being a young woman, entering a leadership at a younger age. Then you got the age bias. You also enter like a large organization, a large hospital, or a large NGO in health, and then you're a woman, you're young, and you don't mirror, you don't see much of people like you. That's an issue where you question your legitimacy despite having confirmed, and confirmed expertise, proven impact. You don't see people like you, then you start questioning yourself, right? But the thing is, I think it's a different layer issue. You have the self part, you have how the self part was raised in a certain family, community, society with all the expectation on women. This is all compounded social cultural expectation of a woman, what a woman should be, what she should be doing. At some point, even if she's like they're like, oh, you can go to school, you need education, but then you get the education, you got the job. When you start getting leadership position, now they start questioning you, this is getting too much. Why you just done, you got the education, you got the job, you're a doctor, and why do you want to do more? I was a physician, I did the humanitarian work, and I'm like, oh, I need a master of public health. I need it in an English speaking country, so I will go learn English. They're like, but girl, this is not gonna be too much. Like, you're good. You're a doctor. You got a good job here. Why are you aiming for more? So these are the internalized things that even people who are very educated will tell you when you're a woman. Why? Because it's socially expected, which we should all, start to dismantle at a very, very in every conversation, in every interactions, right? And then these are the cultural, the social, but also the environments of work, of leadership. It is designed for men. It's not designed for women at all. So it's a system which is designed and giving more possibilities for men, which is asking women to fit in. It's the women are not supposed to be fitting in a system which is really not
Exactly.
designed for them. Definitely not. So it's a very three-dimensional or even more issue. There is at the self level because all that we've been taught that we've seen, because sometimes as a woman you like I don't have any imposter, I don't doubt myself, and then you are in a situation where you don't really see people thriving. And then now you start questioning yourself. So at the self, the society, community, but also the organization and the system, it's really a very, very different level. Yeah.
Thank you. And something very, very similar is what I would like to ask you. How might imposter syndrome impact leadership, development, decision making, and confidence among emerging health leaders? And you can, focus on your region or any case study that you have come across.
It has an impact. So here is the thing. The second group I mentioned of established women's, they tend to delay. They have a very interesting relationship with time. It's like I'm over preparing, so putting much more time before I deliver something, or delaying a decision, an action, a reform, which could be very important for the place, for the woman, for the organization, or for herself. So every decision a woman is silencing out of self-doubt, I say, is a decision that the system is making without her, for sure. So it's first is a slow leadership growth. Capable emerging leaders, young professionals, women, they underestimate their readiness to entering this leadership role. So not applying for position, declining promotions, all these things, it's a slow leadership growth for women. So we don't anyway, we don't have much women at leadership positions. Now we have slow leadership growth because of all these excessive self-doubt, etc. Second thing also is we're gonna have a weakened influence on policy and discussions, because if we don't have enough women leaders coming and sharing their own perspective, their own views, on top of being expert, top-notch technical, then decision and policies are being shaped without their own views, without their own lived experiences. I have a very good friend of mine, excellent woman leader in policy, in advocacy for policy and reproductive health, who says, whatever you do for me without me is not for me. So if you think about it, if we have policy discussions, if you have reforms and you have women not much represented or equally represented, then it's done without them. And and it has even to go beyond that, because sometimes, they are invited, they are in the room, or we have women, but then we have to make sure we give them the real role, which gives them the opportunity to give their say, the real say, and for it to be taken into consideration, not just the visible gender equity kind of issue. Oh, yes, we invited women, we have women, but we want to have women who are given this opportunity to have a say, and that the say taken into consideration.
A
Yeah.
follow-up question on this one. I'm not, I'm sure I'm not the only one. Like, globally, we're not in a very happy place right now. There's so much conflict going on. In your experience, do you see that there has been a shift towards addressing this and including women's voices in policymaking?
I think there has been progress because now we have more, people discussing visibility. You have women leaders in global health doing a phenomenal work of advocacy. So we're seeing that more and more. But it has to continue. It has to be more structural. It has to be more than advocacy. It has to go into many, many different ways. We don't want to only see women, we also want them deciding, we want them making the decision, contributing to the decision at a different level, and not only at the global top level where you see, because for you to get at a global top level, you have to be able to start at different places. More women in the middle management as well, more women at the places where sometimes you think that not much decision is taken, but then that's where they will build that confidence and bring it to, these boardrooms, these big policy places where decisions are being shaped. So we've seen progress. But what I'm happy about to see is that, see what we're doing here is we're having a conversation about this important topic, and then you realize, oh my God, I'm not alone,
Mm,
oh my God, somebody's also feeling the same way. And these are the things, because the imposter feeling, it happens at a closed door. It happens between you and yourself. It happens between, these 5 seconds where you're in a very important maybe discussion and you wanted to point something and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. That's where all the things happen, and that's this discussion we're having, and the platforms and the visibility. It really tackles down at a self level so that one can go fit into, whatever is being designed at a system or structural level.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, Moving on to my next question.
Mhm.
In your view, are there any particular groups among women who you think are more vulnerable to imposter syndrome? And if yes, why might that be?
I mean, from the discussion I had on this topic, the question is, why do women doubt themselves? You know, rather, what leadership environment produced the doubt, and
Mm,
for whom? So the more vulnerable group, for what I have seen, is really, excellent, talented women at a younger age coming into leadership roles. They're excellent, talented, but they're younger. I remember having a conversation about one of the phenomenal women leader in Niger who did phenomenal, impactful work. She was telling me she went into her first leadership when she was very, very young, woman and young. It was extremely difficult for her to bring in reforms, to bring in new ideas, and even assert herself. And it was even sometime beyond even only the male dominated world. The second thing is, when women enter in a very large male dominated institution, hospital, organization, despite, being very competent, that's a sort of vulnerability because, oh my God, this is a whole large thing and I'm a just small thing coming here. Even with my expertise, the first years or months, they're very hard from what I have discussed with them. It's very, very hard to be able not to doubt themselves to such a vulnerability there. It is important to recognize also the intersectionality, that compounds all the different little issues and disadvantages when it comes to the vulnerability. A woman who's young, but, certainly talented, but young, coming into something very new, maybe raised in a family where you're not really given the opportunity to be to want more, and sometimes when you want more, maybe the community or the society where you grew up, you're being silenced, so
yeah.
growing up with all these, coming up as a young person, or maybe let's say we're francophone, a francophone person stepping into a completely anglophone or another language, these are the little vulnerabilities that when it come together, it's gonna be a whole. bunch of big, compounded issue, which each of them will have a say on sometime how you feel about your own competent self on delivering results, despite having, you know, consistent impact that is proven.
I just because I think I absolutely want to ask you, I have another follow-up question. And you can have a very brief answer for this. Do you think many of us come from places that have been colonized? Do you think that has an impact on how we think and how we see ourselves in a room full of leaders?
Definitely, yes. I will just give you my own maybe case. I studied my whole med school in French language, and then you step up in rooms where people are speaking English, and there's this thing I observed among many Francophone who maybe come in a room with other people, leaders. They start by apologizing. I used to do that.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm really sorry for my accent, and then they start to talk.
Yes.
And I remember there was a major conference. I remember it was 3 or 2 years ago in Rwanda. I was online, I was listening. Um, Major world leaders about to starting talking, and then one of them, she's both Francophone and Anglophone, so she wanted to start speaking in French. And I remember the moderator saying to her, no, 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 can you please continue in English? And I went back on Twitter asking the moderator, why did you do that? Everyone had a headset in the room, right?
Yes.
And they could listen, and there is a, translation going on. She's like, no, 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 because I could see in the room, like everyone, like they had their headset, but like not on them, which means they would miss the point she's gonna make. And I say to her, see, that's the point I was trying to make.
Yes.
People coming from this specific francophone, they come and they're here, they're making the effort to listen to the English speaking, but then the other way around apparently was not possible. So it could also be the other way around, which means it's a language we all inherited. So it really happened to me when I go into places. I apologize because I think, oh, this is a language I'm speaking. This is a majority language here. I have to kind of apologize in advance so that if it's perceived that I'm not speaking well enough, they understand. And it is that, again, self-doubt coming from exactly your point to your question.
I see it all the time. I see it all the time. And 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 even when maybe sometimes we're in a situation where we would like to apologize, but we haven't, but the discomfort shows that, oh, I think I'm not good enough because I'm not speaking in that language. That's the preferred language. I have a little plug-in before we move on to the rest of the questions. So I just wanted everyone who joined us today and who will be watching our sessions, please support us through our social media platforms. We're in YouTube, Spotify. Our podcast is on Spotify. Today's session will go on to our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. So please find us, join us, and if you have great case studies, articles, anything that you would like to write about that progresses, that promotes the sustainable development goals, we do publish articles. If you're seeing someone doing great work in their communities, please nominate because we're always looking for great change makers. I just wanted to put that out for everyone, and also everyone who joined today, you will get a chance to ask questions at the end. So we're going to take the questions and comments at the end of the webinar. So moving on, what role do you think, and I was going to ask you this at the end as well, what role do mentorship and professional networks play in helping health professionals overcome imposter syndrome in the region, internationally? I think it works the same way everywhere, but I will seek your insights.
100% sure. Mentorship and network, I think I would say many, many things, I got many good advices, many, many. good informations I got, I think, because of network and, network and mentorship. Definitely, it is something which really shaped who I am, shaped my career, continue to shape also what I do, both in my work, in my volunteering work with the NGOs, I support and I work with. Actually, three of the interviewees of this cohort of 40 established women were my mentors. And the interesting is I was preparing the first conversation with that phenomenal woman, who was a former minister, etc., of health. And then I posted, we have a network group of women leaders, and I posted, hey, I am preparing a talk, a conversation about this woman. What do you think? I just want words. And then words kept coming. Oh my God, she's a phenomenal mentor. Oh my God, the network she built, it helped me. 20 years ago, I met her. She opened something and she asked us to join, and we're here 25 years ago continuing. There was a lovely lady at that time doing her MPH at Harvard. She told me, you know what? This woman, she's like, I have to read it for you. She's like, she's a living baobab. She's a living legend.
Wow.
She's like, I want to write a poem for her. And she's like, her mentorship feels like gathering around a camp of fire of knowledge that unify everyone who seek to listen. And she says, as she speaks, the light sparks the mind of those she teaches. So
Wow.
mentorship is phenomenal because what is interesting in mentorship will give you a fast track of a whole journey that somebody went through. And
Yes.
what is also more interesting is the sponsorship because this person will help you walk the fear. We will talk about it a bit later. And network is important. Why? Because you have shared experiences, you have information flow, you have transferable skills, you have sort of sponsorship also can come from the network and visibility and this beautiful thing that is sorority when it comes to women. Why? Because at the end of the day, in this whole journey, operating from um, a hospital or an operating room or in a ministry, self-doubt is the common thing we all have. We face
Yes.
across, all the career journeys, countries, continents. So because we have this some common thing, having a network where you sit and you have discussion, you only get to know that, oh my God, I'm also going through this. Okay, you went through this. Tell me, how did you do that? I got this leadership position. What do you think? It's a really important to have shared experiences, and you only have it in networks because you have in common something. And that sorority thing is a sort of what networks of women give. I was lately in a beautiful network of women leaders in the West Africa Francophone community. We are like sisters now. I fly to Dakar and I would just call my girls. We sit, we have a 1 hour discussion. You come out very strong, inspired. I want to
Yes.
do this. I want to do this. I want to tackle this and this and this and that. So network and mentorship definitely it is beyond what we think. It really gives a transformational possibility to everyone who step into that. It's really, really important to have a network, to keep the network, to nurture the network, because that's how you continue to grow, to get from the network, and to also give.
Absolutely. I hope that all our audience, our change makers watch this video because I cannot reiterate how important it would be for their careers. Um, so my next question is, I come from a place where I have seen that um, the 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 care workforce always it's dominated by women. But when we look at leadership, the faces start disappearing. So you can choose to focus on the health sector. I think it's pretty common in many sectors. I would like to ask you, how can health institutions and training programs create supportive environments that reduce self-doubt and encourage confidence among health workers?
I think, Ramona, the answers also are in your question because supportive environment, reducing self-doubt, encouraging confidence. It is so important to have this because we want to shift from self-doubt from a private, internal feeling or perceived weakness to maybe an addressable leadership reality. It's to create a sort of structural experiences, to create a structural way for women to name whatever is they're feeling, to name it, but not feel like it's something that should stop them. That's the first thing, The second thing I think is to make sure that there is a culture that rewards learning and courage. Because at the end of the day, when we are self-doubting ourselves, it's a fear of failure. Why? Because as a woman, when you fail in a leadership position or you fail to deliver what is expected, sometimes the expectation are so much far above whatever could be done just because you're a woman. It's really important for organizations and places, environment to reward learning and courage, which
Yeah.
means if the focus is, I'm going to learn something, I'm going to I'm going to take a courage to do this new idea, this new thing, and see how it goes. Of course, backed with all expertise and everything, then we will really reduce having women self-doubting themselves, and then they will accept that promotion. They will go with that promotion because why? A woman will wait to have 100% and plus of the skills required for a leadership position that they want to apply for, whereas their male counterpart will just get 50 or 60%. They will apply for the job. So when we have this environment which really rewards learning and courage, then it reduces that fear of failure, and then it will encourage women to go more for these, positions. And moving women from this front line to decision-making spaces, and not only bringing them, as I say, for the gender equity visuals, but we really want to make sure that we bring in women that you know, we bring in women and we give them this opportunity to have a say, and we consider also their say, which means we redesign leadership and training programs. When you take healthcare, maybe trainings, and also maybe similar to other trainings, it's important to add a certain way of training, specifically for women, that not only the technical skills are required, these are also things that you should be prepared for when you're going into the labor force.
Mm.
These are the things that maybe your peer are experiencing or experience. So the awareness is important to have before you go into that labor force, before you go into leadership positions and you start doubting yourself and then you start to figure out what's going on. You got the awareness, you might not have imposter, you might not doubt yourself, but it's good to have this, information before you go there. And having a sort of intentional, clear promotion frameworks for women, this whole fear and not knowing how things really work, that
Yes.
just amplifies the self-doubt. So when it's clear that, these are the metrics, and then they make sure they don't internalize all these biases, on they're aware of the biases of all the, so much expectation on women to perform more. If we remove them, then we have a sort of a safe, structured environment for a woman to grow equally as her male, counterpart. And then also have a workplaces which support women who want to be or go into motherhood, because this is a penalty they go through when they want to have babies or they got the babies, and then it's just very difficult to kind of handle things. And I remember one of a conversation I had with a woman leader in Senegal. She told me when she got a promotion, she doubted taking it many a time. And I said, why? She's like, I just got a baby.
Mm.
And this position will make me travel so much. I cannot leave my baby. The organization doesn't have a structure in place which could allow me to do that. She said after doubting herself for 2 weeks, she went and had a conversation with a mentor and a sponsor who told her, look, go and negotiate that. Tell them how excellent, how competent you are, how you're a good fit far above everyone else who have applied. But these are your conditions. Talk to them and say, I want to travel with my child. You have to pay for that. You have to cover all these things. And she was able to negotiate and get that. And she was able to take on that role and continue to do her impact. But imagine if you could have something like this at a very scale. It would be fantastic because at this time, a woman will get a position, a promotion,
Mm.
or will not prevent herself from applying for a leadership position because of all whatever society has put on them, and we do have an environment which is enabling her to do so without sacrificing or making or picking, making choices, or picking. So these are some of the things that come to my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I so agree with you. And also, it is in the business or the organization's interest to hire the best candidate, and it can very well be that person has a child. So I absolutely agree with you on that. So what strategies or initiatives, in your experience, have proven effective in empowering young health professionals, and sort of in identifying and overcoming imposter syndrome?
So, first is I think at a self level, recognize it, name it, and do it anyway. So, and advices alone also they don't dismantle the syndrome. You have a beautiful conversation and then you go back and you are in a position where you need to act sometime and the inner voice will kick in, right?
Yes.
Action is what builds the confidence, not the other way around. And there is a wonderful book also on that I could share later, Confidence Code, something like that, which also says the same. Confidence really comes after the action. So which means we feel the doubt, we recognize it, but we act anyway. And there is something that I think is interesting from the perspective of mentor and sponsor. The mentor, I think, will talk the doubt with you,
Hmm.
which means, hey, look, I've been through this. They discuss, this is what I've done. They talk the doubt. That's what the mentor does. But
Hmm.
then the sponsor will walk the fear with you. You know, this is what you should be doing. Checking on, did you do this? Did you do the conversation? How did it go? Did you apply for the position? How did it go? Or even sitting, I remember a woman telling me that she had to sit with her mentee. She's like, look, I've been mentoring you for maybe 4 years. I have witnessed every major issue you thought you could not handle. This is how you handle it. So it's like the sponsor is somebody who, yes, mentors you, who walk the fear with you by showing you how they witnessed, you know, every time you thought you could not do something, you did it. They remind you. It doesn't even have to be sometimes somebody who's like a higher in leadership or in your sector or whatever. It has to be somebody who cheers for you, wants you to win, wants you to go far, believe in the impact you can make, and witness your journey. Because as a high achiever, as you know, women in this women leaders in this sector, you tend to overachieve, overperform so that you can just compensate this perceived or inadequacy with your male counterpart. And then you tend to normalize, oh, I've done something phenomenal, but it's just something else. But then the person who are there to witness the journey will remind you how important work you've done, how impact you've made, how capacity you have, even if it's something very new to you. The sponsor who witnessed your journey will remind you of the capacities, the skills that you have that are transferable that can be used to make an impact or that you can make it. So really, you find a mentor who can talk the doubt with you, and then you find a sponsor who can walk the fear because you go over fear only by action. Fear is there anyway, but when you act, then it goes away, right? And
Yes.
there is a very interesting anecdote I wanted to share because last week, I think it's this week, we are still Saturday. Um, there was a beautiful, inspiring conversation on a report I'll encourage you to read. And the talk was about the economic magic of gender equity. And Christine Lagarde was on that panel, so I could not miss that panel. So I was
She's
going to the
also
panel.
someone, sorry to interrupt, she's also
Yes,
someone I really look up to, a very strong leader who happens to be a female leader and in a field that's dominated by men.
100% yes. I was going to the talk and I was writing my question. I would ask her about, how do we overcome over preparation as a response to imposter syndrome? Because why I heard her say online that she was talking to I think was Chancellor Merkel, that they also found that they over prepare just to compensate that feeling of imposter. And I was there listening to her, and one of the key things, it was a 20-minute talk, but then she dared to mention the imposter syndrome. She's like, you know what, name it, it's there, but go do the work anyway. So we can recognize it, but then we should continue, to go anyway. And it was really interesting for me to see that Christine Lagarde, at
Yes.
her level, she talks about this
Yes.
imposter phenomenon. What does it tell us? What does it say? It says
Hmm.
it is there. Even if it's there, you can still do it. And that's why it's so important to have conversations. I was amazed to, I was shocked to hear that she could talk about these things as well. So
Hmm.
she also maybe experienced it. I was like, wow. But
Yes.
the good thing is she talks about it and it helps understand, okay, there are ways, So I think at a self level, it's no, you talk you talk the doubt that you're feeling at an inner way, and then you walk the fear with a mentor. This is at a self level, and at the system level, it's way it's a whole lot different, a whole different talk of how systems can create a solid environment for women to thrive, and society also to create a more inclusive understanding, ways around women and not putting these expectations just because we are a woman. And we could start, also with our younger kids, girls, at home that you can do whatever you want. And there is no one who's supposed to be telling you that you're not capable of doing that. So,
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I was going to say. That, with having this discussion with you today, the mentor, you mentioned your mentor and some of the very nice things that the mentees have said. You used the example of Christine Lagarde. I think it sends a very strong message to young girls that it's there. A lot of people, great leaders even experience it, but it can be worked on, and this is how you do it. Um, so looking ahead, what practical steps can regional health leaders take to ensure that talented women professionals are not held back by imposter syndrome? You might have covered, a lot of this in your previous responses, but it would be good to have a consolidated view from you.
mhm. Yes, so remember reading a report says, unless specific action, are done, targeted measures, workplace gender equity is estimated to take more than 200 years for us to get to that point. So can you imagine? We cannot afford not doing something, definitely. I think actions to redesign a system really that welcome and recognize women. Um, and recognize this feeling and whatever women are going through. It does not ask a system which is not asking women to shrink, to adapt to that, but a system which really creates an environment for women to learn without the fear of failing, to take on position without the fear of failing. Why? So we also have to remove all the things that make women feel like maybe if I fail, I'm gonna be judged more. because maybe they have seen it. They have seen
Yeah.
it around them. Somebody, a woman fell, a woman is more judged, on her performance when it comes to delivering
Hmm.
than her male counterpart. So we have to remove that so that she knows, look, if I go into this position, I will be able to deliver my result and equally assessed by my male counterpart, right?
Yes.
Imposter is not born in women. It is built by systems that were never designed with them in mind.
Yes.
So system with a psychological safety, that's the foundation where women can really build in their leadership skills and go and do impact without the fear of maybe it's not going to work or maybe I'm going to be working two, three, five times more to be able to get the same recognition.
Yes.
Peer networks, yes,
Hmm.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it fascinates me because I remembered reading somewhere that Africa used to be a matriarchal system and how very toxic patriarchal practices have managed to enter. And here we are. We are all suffering in the same conditions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Patriarchy. We have to dismantle patriarchy. That's the major issue of us in everything. Patriarchy is everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yes.
Peer networks and cohort-based leadership programs, because that's where, if at regional level, we have cohort-based leadership programs, solid networks of young women, then you share the experience, you transfer the skill, you walk the fear. That's where you get your sponsor, even if it doesn't have to be somebody very senior. Programs that encourage leadership through also volunteerism, activism, community engagement. Because what I have seen among the women I've talked to, the women who don't have or don't feel any imposter or doubting themselves, they're all coming from a volunteerism background, you know, community engagement background, civil society, and all that. So the fact that also we could create ways in communities which enables also women to serve and get the leadership skills into service before even, needing or coming into leadership positions in their maybe work environment. That also something that is interesting where you get the legitimacy before even power, you seek power or you it's granted to you. We need also health trainings, I think, which go beyond technical skills. It needs to be integrated. I've learned all these things out from med school. I didn't learn a leadership skill in med school. It was not in a teaching class, right?
Yes.
Maybe I learned it at the community level in med school at the university, maybe because I was in student associations
Hmm.
and we do things and we organize people, and then you realize by the end of 2, 3 years you've accumulated skills that are actually leadership skills because you organize things, you put people together, you manage problems, you deliver the result. So it has to be in a certain way, thought for women so that we can maybe accelerate this gender gap. We cannot afford to have 200 years to get to where we want to go, right?
Absolutely.
And we need to find a way also to teach our people, our peer, our girls, our friends, sisters, to build confidence sometime before even leadership positions are available
Yes.
at a personal level, but at a system level as well. Personalized support for women with leadership potential so that we do not wait until a major position is available to be filled out. And then we look, where is the pipeline? Maybe we don't have a pipeline. And then what end up happening? It's going to be a male taking position. So building pipelines, with a personalized coaching support on top of the technical, it's really, really good because it gives a very great pipeline so that they can be pushed into these positions as well. It also help advance, preparation helps to reduce the self-doubt as well, but we just have to make sure we're not taking it as a, response or compensation
Yes.
from the self-doubt. And it builds confidence before leadership position is available, because that's when um, you feel the legitimacy, you go through the whole thing before even something is available,
Yeah,
that you
absolutely. I
can
hope
take.
everyone's listening to this, watching our discussion, sort of focuses on each aspect that you're mentioning because it does take homework. It does take reflecting on one's journey and aspirations to understand what is it that's required. Um, so I'm going to move on to questions and comments from our audience today. We're very privileged to be joined by Dr. Carbo, who's going to be our guest speaker next month on a very interesting topic, which I will not disclose today. But I'll go to her question. She asked, is it imposter syndrome when you feel you're ready and you don't worry about your capabilities, but you anticipate challenges in resistance to your leadership, especially starting a new position?
It could be, thank you for the question. It could be because it's an internalized feeling of, oh my God, we are very women are so much into this. Society has put us in this position of you always look for issues and how things could go wrong, and you start anticipating so that things will not go wrong, because if they go wrong, I'm a woman, da 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 da. So it could be, it could also be, I think at a similar level, somebody who just really care about good result, care about impact, which we all know from women, that's women leaders, that they care about good impact, they care about good result. So it could be both, but it is really to think about, is it something which comes out all the time? I have to take on a position, I have to make a big decision, I have to, then you start to think maybe then it looks like an imposter. It's not really looking for just, the other side. And that's where also the sponsor or the mentor comes in, because somebody who have witnessed your journey could really tell you, I remember you told me this about this, you said this about this, you did this. So maybe it's an imposter. So that's my thought on that question.
Thank you. I will move on to the next, which we have a long comment and questions. This is from Grace. Grace said, Dear Dr. Barry, thank you for such an inspiring talk. Your journey and the impact you have had through your work are deeply moving, and I'm grateful for the generosity with which you shared with your reflections. You shared your reflections. As a health specialist at the World Bank Group, I imagine your path has not been without moments of self-doubt, even in rooms where your expertise was unquestionable. Would you be willing to share a moment when you personally experienced imposter syndrome and the strategies or mindset shifts that helped you move through it? As an African woman navigating global health spaces, I would also value any practical wisdom you might offer to those of us who are still building our place at the tables. What lessons, habits, or principles have served you most, and what would you encourage a younger colleague from the continent to hold on to as she grows into her own voice? Thank you again for your time and your leadership. Do you want
Thank
me
you
to
so much,
repeat the
Grace.
questions? I think you
Uh,
asked for an experience where a time when you experienced imposter syndrome and what strategies and mindset shifts that helped you, and also any lesson, habits, or principles that have served you the most. And what would you recommend to a younger colleague who's emerging?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Grace. Beautiful question. First, on an experience, I think I had experiences many a time, and many a time it was coming when I people were recognizing my work, and I would just downplay it. And it's really not the downplaying in like, oh, I'm just gonna be humble. It's like I'm believing it, whatever you're saying. I don't think this is that much true. And a typical example is that I went to Hopkins, did my master, full-time MPH. I was president of the African Public Health Network, also looked like a full-time job, organizing this kind of talk and activities all around the school, managing high-level, panels with first ladies, etc. serving in Baltimore community. These
Mm,
are facts, right? And then at the end of the year, um, they nominated awards for students, da, 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 and I end up being nominated and awarded the Student of the Year award, graduating Student of the Year. So when I read the email, I called my friend. I said, "Did you see this thing?" She said, "What?" I said, "Did you see that? Like they are giving me an award for like the Student of the Year." I don't, do you know who are on the committee? Like, do they look at other students? I was like, I'm not sure. Maybe it was just one professor who did the nomination. That's the self-doubt of myself saying,
mm,
maybe I don't really, do I deserve this? I really questioned it. I questioned it to the point a day before the graduation. I was like, oh my God, do I really deserve this award? I have to go walk on the stage and take it. I was stressed thinking, do I really deserve this award? Like, why they're giving this to me?
yes.
So it came to me many a time at this, at a moment where some of my work is being recognized, and then later on I reflect and I understand where is it coming from. It's because you're so much overachieving or you're so much overcompensating sometime that when a recognition also comes, which could be similar to getting a promotion or being asked to take on a leadership role, you start questioning what I've done. I've just done it. Maybe, and then you see the male counterpart, they will do one third of what you've done, and then they will even go everywhere and say, this is what I've done, etc., etc. And they will take it into consideration when they're applying for position. So this is an example, Grace. So the second part of her question, could you remind me? It's about
Yes. So it's about what lessons, habits, or principles have served you most, and what would you encourage a younger colleague from the continent to hold on to as she grows into her own voice?
so lessons or strategies is really to come back to facts, recognize the self-doubt, the inner voice, recognize it, name it, and then come back to facts.
Mm,
Come back to that person also who has seen you progress. Come back to really the own values of service. I think for what has really helped me over the years is to put the impact, the outcome in front of me and then look at it as a service process. It
mm,
really reduces the imposter phenomenon. Because when I remember for many a time, either with Women Leaders in Global Health chapter in Niger, which I was leading its advocacy part, or co-founding my own organization, or finding myself in a leadership position where I did not ask for it just because I was serving and everyone's like, we nominated you, here you are. I will I will doubt, I will have the fear, but I will look for the outcome of the people that I'll be serving. If I take this position, if I go for this role, if I am leading this NGO or this association or taking on this project, I have the fear, I don't know, maybe, 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 but the outcome of having a better life for these people, a better outcome for my community, it really, for sure and for a long time, it really helped me go through the process and give the deliver, like cut on the self-doubt and say, because of this outcome that I'm seeing, I'm gonna do the work.
yes.
And the process which helped me is to go through service. I worked in a humanitarian health in a context which is extremely difficult. And I remember that moment when I got the offer, I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? Leading some teams in extremely difficult environment, working also serving displaced population. How am I going to do it in a completely different new region, completely different environment, and a very fragile setting? I had so much fear, but what helped me decide in that moment, and I could really remember that morning when I was sitting and thinking and even drawing, because I love drawing on papers. It gives me the facts, so I can look at the facts, and then now it kills the self-doubt. I'm like, for these people, they still deserve to have better health care. They
Yes.
deserve to have excellent team delivering care to them, despite being at a very far in camp, displaced, etc. This is the outcome I'm seeing. And what is the process? It's gonna be service for me. It's more than a job, it's service. So this literally kills the self-doubt, or even if it's not killing it, it reduces the volume so that I would take on the position. And then having the service in mind and the outcome, it helps me continue. And I think it is transferable. It helps you go through difficult moment when you have big projects.
Yes.
It also helps you advocate and take on more and do the things because of why the people you're serving, they deserve your excellence. The people you're serving, they deserve your time, your expertise, your ideas because you have the service in mind. So these are the things I really carry on. Every work I take on, whether it's paid or not, I see it through a lens of service and I see what is going to benefit on the other side. So that's how it really helps me to reduce the volume of the self-doubt, and then go back to the facts. So,
Thank you so much. Turia asked the same question. Turia, I hope that you got your response. Um, you know, um, that's very good insights we received. So I'm going to move on to a question from Sharon. To what extent can imposter syndrome, rather than lack of opportunity, drive skilled professionals to leave Francophone West Africa, contributing to brain drain?
could you repeat a bit, or
To
maybe I
what
didn't really listen?
extent can imposter syndrome, rather than the lack of opportunity, drive
Mhm.
skilled professionals to leave Francophone West Africa, contributing to brain drain?
Hmm. I'm not sure I've understood the question. To
I
which
guess I
extent?
think
Mhm.
what Sharon might be asking is that whether imposter syndrome is a factor that's contributing to brain drain in West Africa.
I don't know if I have an answer to that because to my understanding, the imposter feeling, yes, I had conversation with women, in the Francophone Africa region, and this was only because I was in a network of Francophone women, and this is where I'm coming from. But it's so common that it goes beyond the Francophone, it goes beyond my community, it goes beyond the Africa region, it goes
Yes.
even beyond the continent of Africa, right? So brain drain is a whole different thing. It's a whole, issue which definitely, has its own enablers and it own things that, continue factors that continue to have impact on it and drain people out of the francophone. But I don't think imposter syndrome per se is a thing that is pushing maybe people out of the francophone. Why? Because imposter is a fear of inadequacy, is doubting yourself. So the more you go out of your zone, of your comfort zone, the more you are vulnerable to doubting yourself because the less you see people like you. The more you are with your people, wherever you are, Francophone, Africa or not, you are less doubting yourself because you could recognize people around you. So the more you go out of your comfort zone, the more vulnerable you might be to doubting yourself, unless you go in an environment where you really you have your people, you have people like you, depends on whatever you are, people like you, then maybe you have less let's say imposter. But I don't know if I answered her question, but this is the perspective I have on it.
Thank you. And moving on to the last question we received. This one's from Gertrude. Thank you so much, Dr. Barry, for your brilliant insights. Could you share a high and a low in your career so far and how they have shaped you?
Thank you, that's a very good question. A high, to me, a high, it's to see result in people's eyes. to see a project shaping something that you worked on, so much, and then you see it taking shape. That's high. It gives you that thing of, whatever you're fighting for, it's getting there. You're getting there. You're seeing results. The low part, also, I think it's sometimes very frustrating, on top of the health work that I do. I'm a thorough gender equity, warrior. And it's just so frustrating and at a lower point when, despite all the advocacy you do, the talk you have, the activities you do in the communities. I'm a co-founder of Niger Leagues for Women's Rights. Despite doing all these things, you still wake up and you see a gender-based case, and then you see a fellow woman being, so much dragged into something that is so much difficult. That's the law. That's the law every time. As a woman, as an African woman, you wake up, or just as a woman, you wake up and you see how much progress is needed for gender equity. That's the low part. But it is what it is, and this is also what's drive, us to continue to do the work. But every time I wake up to these things, that's the low. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Our final question to you. Um, I'm sure that after watching this webinar, many people would want to get in touch with you. So, any final words that you have, and also how would someone reach out to you?
Fantastic. So I'll start with the second one. They could reach out on LinkedIn, Fatoumata Adelle Barry, Barry Adele on Twitter, and Barry Auteur.
Apologies, I think we have lost Fatoumata. I was just going to, we're over time, but I'm just gonna wait. She's here. Apologies for the technical disruption.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sorry, apologies.
no
I,
worries.
I, I think my Twitter did not want people to to look for me. Sorry. So Barry Auteur as an author on Instagram as well. So these are where you can find me. And for my last point, I think it's important to just recognize whatever self-doubt we do have. It is important to name it, but it shouldn't stop anyone from taking action. And when it comes to really making a decision and going forward, what is important, I think, is to look at the outcome, to look at the impacts we are seeing, to look at the solution that our technical expertise, our service, our passion, our love for the cause, for the health and beyond could do. Then we take it with the service. This is at a self level. Now at a system, at the structural level, there is much, much, much more to be done.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to, conscious that we have gone way over time. I'm going to close this session, but thank you so much, Fatoumata, for joining us and sharing your very powerful insights. I say this every time I feel very inspired having a conversation with an expert like yours, that everyone joining, everyone watching this webinar, please do listen to it carefully. Please look at the profile of the guest speaker, what milestones the person has achieved, as well as the golden nuggets um, that the speaker has shared. And I'm sure that, I know I'm going to go back to each of your responses and reflecting, reflecting on all the suggestions and all the examples that you have shared with us today. So thank you so much for making time and joining us today at our platform. I recommend everyone to watch this webinar and learn from everything that you have shared.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to have a conversation with you here. And thank you so much for the work that you do. I'm not saying it because I'm here on the talk, but it's such an important way to share lights, visibility, share information, share ideas, and really, really make women all around the world who could watch you, could listen, understand that sometimes they're not alone. Sometimes, it's coming from everywhere, and it's good to know that, oh, I'm not alone. I can get an advice here. So thank you for this phenomenal work that you're doing. I really commend it, and thank you for the opportunity of sharing some of my work as well.
Thank you so much. And one last request that I have for you is you mentioned a book, you mentioned your case study. If you wanted to share any materials, then when we post our discussion on our YouTube channel, we can share it for our audience and for our change makers who's always willing to learn from our expert guest speakers. That would be really helpful. And with that, I have already said, please do support us by joining our socials, amplifying our voices. And I have revealed our next guest speaker. So see you next month with a very interesting topic and have a great day, everyone, wherever you're based.
Thank you. Fantastic. Have a lovely weekend and looking forward to the next month to listen to the phenomenal person you're bringing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.